My boys, when I first heard that Sonic Team was going to be doing this Year of Shadow, I thought this was like a tax write-off kind of thing. I was thinking that this was going to be a Year of Luigi type deal. I did not imagine that they would go this hard. I mean, when they said Year of Shadow, they really meant it. Shadow's getting his big movie debut, being brought to life by Keanu Reeves, who's also voice acting him for the movie tie-in levels in Shadow Generations, which Shadow Generations is just pretty much a new Shadow game. Having Mephiles, the Black Arms, Gerald, and Maria all finally be acknowledged after almost like 2 decades of neglect, I just don't think we can get any more peak than that. I call dibs.
Can we get much higher? So high.
I can't even properly articulate how happy it makes me to see Shadow get this much deserved redemption after years of neglect. So let me talk about why it makes me sad. You know how they say comparison is the thief of joy? Well, I've never related to that more until I saw all the love that Shadow's getting and then remembered that this sad sack existed. Silver the Hedgehog was absolutely cheated from his very inception. And it sucks because he never even really got a chance. I feel like he was supposed to be as popular as Shadow, and honestly, he should have gotten his own game after 06, let's be honest. Like, we got Sonic Adventure 2, a game that served as an introduction to Shadow's character, where you could play as Sonic and Shadow. So then we got a Shadow the Hedgehog spin-off game. So I always thought when we got another Sonic Adventure styled game with 06, where a third Hedgehog named Silver was introduced, and we had the ability to play as him, that after that, we would get a standalone Silver game. Like, come on, a 3D platformer with speed segments that also uses his telekinesis as a means to solve puzzles. I need that! We need that! And you can't tell me that Sonic Team didn't have plans for this boy, because they literally made a life-size statue for him at E3 2006. It's always felt like he was made for so much more than what he actually gets used for. But god damn it, if Shadow can get his run back in 2024, then so can Silver. Because Silver deserves it. He was done dirtier than Shadow. In the 2010s, when the Sonic series was pretty much a laughingstock to the general public, people only really remembered Shadow just for how edgy he was. But Silver was just straight up forgotten, banished to be a side character. He didn't even get love when he was a side character. Like how Sonic gets to snowboard. Shadow is hauling ass on some ice skates, and Silver is curling, and he's not even the one pushing the puck, he's brushing the ice. The lack of love that Silver the Hedgehog gets is so upsetting to me because he's so fresh. And call me a drink. He was definitely my favorite Sonic character growing up. Like, his fit goes hard. The boots, the bracelets, the Iron Man palms, and a sick hairstyle that doesn't feel out of place when next to Sonic and Shadow, but still has a distinct silhouette. Like, yeah, that's Silver, yep. He really does deserve to share the spotlight with Sonic and Shadow. I mean, they make such a good trio, and I always loved how in 06, they segmented them into past, present, and future. And you know what? Silver's character is just as strong as Shadow's and Sonic's. In 06, he doesn't know if taking a life to save his future is justifiable. Thinking about it rationally, it sounds like a no-brainer. But when it comes down to it, we see him second-guess himself and question if what he's even doing is the right thing. Even when he's practically forced to follow through on it, he doesn't want to. He has this quick little expression of like, damn, my god, his character in 06, it was going somewhere. And then it went nowhere. Silver's character is pretty much a blank canvas, which makes it especially upsetting to see nothing be done with it. There's just so much that can be done with his character. He's younger, he's naive, he hasn't quite been shaped by life experiences like Sonic and Shadow have. Where Shadow, more often than not, is dealing with his troubled past, and where Sonic unapologetically lives in the present, Silver's working towards his future, a future that's undefined. So Sega, Sonic Team, whoever, please just do something with him. Because Shadow's redemption in the Year of Shadow was such an easy sell. All Sonic Team had to do was acknowledge this lore that they've ignored for so long. And with how successful Sonic X Shadow Generations is proving to be, I think Sonic Team can see clear as day that having the series not take itself seriously did much more damage to when the games had actual stories and stakes and depth. But with that, how? How do they go about acknowledging Silver's characterization and backstory? Because the only game that ever dealt with it, I don't think Sega's quite ready to revisit that game yet. I do think a Silver Generations would actually work really well. I mean, Sonic Team would be able to revisit the core pillars of Silver's character without directly acknowledging Sonic 06 as a whole, and he literally time travels. If Shadow has a run-in with the Time Eater, then so should the Hedgehog, who was introduced with a time travel plot. They could just work it in and say that on his way to the present in Sonic 06, he had this run-in with the Time Eater. But I don't really think another Generations remake is likely. Maybe we do get a Silver Generations as DLC, but even then, I doubt it. With Shadow, he at least had enough substance as a pre-established character and is well enough known, but I don't know if Sonic Team really has enough to work with for a Silver Generations. So this is where I'm absolutely stumped with the means of how to reintroduce Silver to the general public. I feel like the only way it can be done is if Sonic 06 gets a remaster or like a re-release. But I don't really think that can be done, at least until Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 get theirs. And that's something that if you asked me in 2020 if it could happen, I'd ask you what kind of drugs you were on that you even think Sega and Sonic Team would consider doing that. But if you asked me today, maybe it's the copium in the air, but I think it's possible. Maybe not immediately, but guys, they're acknowledging Shadow's lore. The games are slowly returning to form and including actual stories with actual character development, which a game having a competent story sounds like the bare minimum, but I still have PTSD over Lost World and Boom. With how much Sonic Team distanced themselves from the early 2000s style of gameplay and storytelling, they can't just jump right back into that style. They gotta really ease into it. And I'd say that's exactly what they're doing with this Year of Shadow. They're taking it slowly. And at some point, I'm positive that we're going to get games on par with what Sonic Team's original vision was for 06 and the Adventure series. With the success of Shadow Generations, why would Sega and Sonic Team not do more games that take themselves and their stories seriously if it's clearly what fans want and is being received better than any of the games that came out from 2008 to 2017? And I've been thinking of where Sonic Team can go next with what older game in the series they may want to revamp. And I'd like to say that we could get an Adventure remake, but I really don't think we're there yet. We will be, but there's another game I think they need to give another go to prove to the higher-ups once and for all that fans want more in-depth stories and a bigger cast. I remember in 2023, a big rumor was the Sonic Heroes remaster, and it kind of fizzled out into nothing. But there's been a little word about it picking up again, and while you should absolutely take it with a grain of salt, I gotta say, I believe it. A revamped Sonic Heroes would be the perfect next step. It's a game with an intriguing story that's not too serious or too shallow, and it focuses on more than just Sonic, which Sonic Team seems to really want to do more of, like with the Frontiers DLC and Shadow Generations. If Sonic Team does revisit Sonic Heroes and wants to go that extra mile with the new content that the game can bring, like what they did with Shadow Generations, then what I see as an absolute no-brainer is for this hypothetical Sonic Heroes revamp to get a Team Silver storyline as a new addition to the game. Sonic Team is definitely being very methodical about embracing this early 2000s feel that the series had, but I swear they are tiptoeing their way back to that formula because even they know it was the series at its peak. I always felt that the public reception for Sonic Adventure 1 all the way up to Sonic 06 wasn't negative because Sonic was around real humans or had intense plots. The negative reception was because the games didn't have the proper time to cook. Sega rushed Sonic Team to put half-baked games on the shelves, and when they failed, they blamed it on the series for taking itself too seriously, not the fact that they were rushing these half-baked games. Which led to Silver the Hedgehog getting the short end of the stick. He was introduced what was essentially the last nail in the coffin. Silver's character is locked behind probably the last game that Sega wants to acknowledge, but a game that the fan base yearns for. Like myself, there are a lot of fans who were literally 4 years old when Sonic 06 came out, but are now grown adults. And we can see that the game is more than what it is known for. Beyond this abysmal play experience, people really do love how ambitious this story was trying to be. It gave us probably the best Shadow material ever. Sonic literally dies. There were stakes and actual story beats, and I hate to say it, maybe I'm alone in this, but I actually really like the version of Eggman in this game. L take aside, the consensus on 06 is, yeah, it's a dog shit game, but we can see the bones. We can see where it could have been great. But the suits, the higher ups, they did not see that. They just saw a flop and seemingly banished Sonic Team from ever trying anything like that ever again. So it is really cool that with this Year of Shadow, Sonic Team is showing everyone that this early 2000s direction is actually what fans want, and it's a good thing for the series if done right. Now, I know this video is about Silver, and I haven't really been talking about him all too much, but that's because for Silver to return, Sonic Team would have to acknowledge what I've been talking about. They would have to acknowledge the series when it was perceptually at its lowest, but thematically at its peak. To me, Silver the Hedgehog represents this direction that Sonic Team wanted to take the series, but they just weren't able to. Silver was the culmination of the storytelling being at its most ambitious for the series, so I find the potential acknowledgement of Silver the Hedgehog to be more than just a redemption for one character, but rather a redemption for the series as a whole. I can't see the future, but I am an optimist.
Are you also a realist?
I believe if the long-rumored Sonic Heroes reboot does happen, hopefully with an added Team Silver, then I think the notion of Adventure 1 and 2 and 06 getting their second chances isn't off the table. And my god, would I love for new stories to be told in the same vein as those games. But my boys, what do you think? If you think I'm an idiot huffing copium, go yell at me in the comments, and if you think I'm onto something, go yell at me in the comments. But as always, take care of yourselves.